We bought a goldfish for the office. Turns out we needed two hearts to care for at workplace gay story. It all started on a particularly dreary Monday morning at Horizon Marketing Agency. You know the kind, where the coffee machine decides to malfunction, the printer jams 3 times before noon, and everyone's weekend stories sound infinitely more exciting than the spreadsheets waiting on their desks. Our office was located on the 5th floor of a renovated industrial building in the city center, with exposed brick walls and large windows that usually let in plenty of natural light. But that day, heavy rain clouds had settled over the city, casting everything in a gloomy gray hue that matched our collective mood. I should probably introduce myself. I'm Alex Chin, the team leader of our content development department. At 32, I'd been with Horizon for nearly 5 years, working my way up from junior copywriter to managing a team of 8 creative professionals. I'd always prided myself on fostering a positive work environment, but lately, something felt off. The team's energy had been noticeably low for weeks, with fewer jokes during meetings and more silent lunches spent scrolling through phones instead of engaging in our usual animated discussions. Among my team members was Jamie Rodriguez, our social media strategist. Jamie had joined Horizon about 18 months ago and had quickly become an invaluable part of our department. At 28, Jamie had this remarkable ability to see through the noise and identify exactly what a client needed, often before they knew it themselves. With curly dark hair usually tied back in a loose bun, warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners when smiling, and a collection of quirky button-up shirts, Jamie brought both professionalism and personality to our team. What I admired most was Jamie's pragmatic approach to problems, always thoughtful, always caring, but never losing sight of reality. That rainy Monday morning, I called an impromptu team meeting in our glass-walled conference room. I know we're all feeling a bit disconnected lately, I began, looking around at my team's tired faces. The Wilson account has been demanding, deadlines are tight, and I think we could all use something to boost our spirits. Jamie, who was sitting near the end of the table, leaned forward. What did you have in mind? Please don't say another happy hour. My liver is still recovering from the last client celebration. The team laughed, and I smiled appreciatively at Jamie for breaking the tension. No, nothing like that. I was thinking we need something that brings us together daily, something that requires shared responsibility and gives us a common focus beyond work. A team sport, suggested Mia from graphic design. A book club, offered Raj from SEO. Jamie tapped a pen thoughtfully against the notepad. What about a pet? Something we could all take care of together. The room fell silent as everyone considered this idea. Then, gradually, I noticed faces lighting up. Even Dave, our most cynical copywriter, looked intrigued. What kind of pet could survive in an office environment? I asked, already warming to the concept. A goldfish, Jamie replied without hesitation. Low maintenance, doesn't make noise, doesn't need walks, and honestly, watching fish is supposed to reduce stress. Plus, if we all chip in, it's not expensive. I looked around the room, gauging reactions. All in favor of becoming fish parents? Hands shot up around the table, and just like that, Operation Office Goldfish was born. We decided to head to the pet store after work that day, and Jamie volunteered to research what we'd need to create a proper home for our new team member. Later that afternoon, 5 of us piled into my car and drove to Aquatic Wonders, the pet store about 15 minutes from our office. The rain had finally stopped, and patches of blue sky were breaking through the clouds, a good omen, I thought. Walking into the store was like entering another world. The walls were lined with illuminated tanks containing fish of every imaginable color and size. The sound of bubbling water created a soothing backdrop as we made our way to the goldfish section, guided by an enthusiastic employee named Tyler. So you're looking for an office pet? Tyler asked, leading us to a tank filled with orange, white, and calico goldfish swimming lazily in circles. Something that won't die if we look at it wrong, Dave muttered, earning an elbow from Mia. Jamie stepped forward, clipboard in hand. Of course, Jamie had brought a clipboard and began asking Tyler detailed questions about water temperature, feeding schedules, tank cleaning, and goldfish lifespans. I found myself watching Jamie's focused expression, impressed by the thoroughness of the research. This one, Jamie said suddenly, pointing to a bright orange goldfish with distinctive black markings around its eyes that made it look perpetually surprised. It keeps swimming up to the glass whenever we get close. I think it likes us. Or it's begging us to save it from fish prison, Dave commented, but he was smiling too. We all agreed on Jamie's choice, and Tyler helped us select an appropriate tank, filter, decorations, and food. As we checked out, I realized we hadn't discussed the most important detail. What are we naming our new office member? I asked. After a brief but intense debate that included suggestions ranging from Goldie Wilson Back to the Future reference courtesy of Raj, to Swimmy McSwimfist Dave, obviously, we settled on Pixel. A nod to both our digital marketing focus and the fish's small but colorful presence in our lives. The next morning, I arrived early to help Jamie set up the tank. I hadn't expected to find Jamie already there, carefully arranging colorful pebbles at the bottom of the tank we'd placed on a side table visible from most workstations. "You're here early," I said, setting down the coffee carrier I'd brought. "I got you that hazelnut latte you like." Jamie looked up with a grateful smile. "Thanks, Alex. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect before everyone arrived. The water needs time to settle and reach room temperature before we introduce Pixel to his new home." I handed over the latte and watched as Jamie meticulously positioned a small castle and some aquatic plants. "You really care about doing this right," I observed. Jamie paused, looking slightly embarrassed. "I had fish as a kid. They were my responsibility, and I learned the hard way what happens when you don't create the right environment for them." There was something in Jamie's tone, a hint of old pain, that made me want to know more. But before I could ask, the office door opened as Mia arrived, excitedly asking about our new team member. Throughout the morning, other team members filtered in, each stopping by the tank to check on the setup. By lunchtime, everything was ready, and we gathered around as Jamie carefully transferred Pixel from the transport bag into his new home. We all held our breath as the little orange fish hesitated for a moment, then swam out into the larger space, exploring his castle and plants with what looked like curiosity. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the newest member of Horizon Marketing's content team, Pixel the Goldfish, social media fishfluencer," I announced, and everyone applauded. Something magical happened over the next few days. The presence of Pixel created a new routine in our office. People would stop by the tank throughout the day, taking short breaks from their screens to watch him swim. Conversations started naturally around the tank. We created a care schedule, with everyone taking turns feeding Pixel and checking the water temperature. Jamie, unsurprisingly, took the lead in teaching everyone proper fish care. Only a few flakes, twice a day, Jamie would remind whoever was on feeding duty. Overfeeding is the #1 killer of pet goldfish. I noticed that our team meetings had more energy. The Wilson account, which had been causing so much stress, suddenly seemed more manageable. Even our client commented on the fresh ideas coming from our team. When I mentioned our new office pet during a call, our client contact laughed and said, "Whatever works. This is the best content you've delivered all quarter." About 2 weeks after Pixel joined our team, I stayed late to finish a presentation. I thought everyone had left for the day when I heard soft humming coming from the break room. I found Jamie there, carefully cleaning Pixel's tank, a process that involved temporarily relocating him to a smaller container while the tank was emptied, cleaned, and refilled. "Need some help?" I offered, rolling up my sleeves. Jamie looked surprised but nodded. "Could you keep an eye on Pixel while I clean the filter? Make sure he doesn't get stressed in the temporary bowl." I pulled up a chair next to the small bowl where Pixel was swimming in tight circles. "Hey there, little guy. Spa day? Huh? Your personal assistant Jamie is making sure your castle stays pristine." Jamie laughed, hands submerged in the sink. "I don't think he understands English, Alex." "Don't listen to Jamie," I told Pixel conspiratorially. "I can tell you're very intelligent for a fish. Those eyes have seen things." We worked together in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Jamie spoke again. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure," I replied, curious. "Why did you really decide to get an office pet? I know morale was down, but this seems like more than just a team-building exercise for you." I considered the question, watching Pixel swim. "I guess I wanted to create something that brought us together through care, not just through work," I admitted. "My last relationship ended because we were both so focused on our individual goals that we forgot to nurture what we had together. I didn't want that happening to our team." Jamie nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. Care requires attention and consistency. It's easy to take relationships for granted when you're busy. What about you?" I asked. "You mentioned having fish as a kid. Was that a good experience?" Jamie's hands stilled for a moment. "My parents were going through a messy divorce. The fish tank was supposed to be therapeutic for me, something stable in an unstable time. But I was only 10, and no one really taught me how to care for them properly." Jamie's voice grew quieter. "I came home from school one day to find 3 of them floating at the top of the tank. I was devastated, convinced it was my fault." "I'm sorry," I said, genuinely moved by the story. That's a heavy burden for a kid. It taught me something important, though, Jamie continued, now rinsing the colorful pebbles. Living things need consistent care, not just good intentions. You can't just love something and expect it to thrive. You have to show up for it every day. Jamie glanced up with a small smile. That's why I brought that clipboard to the pet store. I wasn't going to let another fish down. Something shifted between us in that moment, a deeper understanding, a glimpse beneath the professional personas we maintained at work. As we carefully returned Pixel to his freshly cleaned tank, our hands brushed briefly, and I felt an unexpected warmth spread through me. Over the next few weeks, Jamie and I fell into a routine of staying late on Thursdays to clean Pixel's tank together. These evenings became something I looked forward to, a chance to talk about things beyond work deadlines and client demands. I learned that Jamie had studied marine biology before switching to marketing, had a collection of vintage cameras, and volunteered at an LGBTQ+ youth center on weekends. In turn, I shared stories about my childhood in a traditional Chinese-American family, my passion for amateur astronomy, and my struggles to find authentic connection in a city where everyone seemed too busy for meaningful relationships. One Thursday evening, about 2 months after Pixel had joined our office, I arrived to find Jamie staring worriedly into the tank. "What's wrong?" I asked, setting down my bag. "Pixel doesn't look right," Jamie said, voice tight with concern. "He's been floating near the top of the tank all day, barely moving. And look, his gills seem inflamed." I peered into the tank and saw that Jamie was right. Our usually active goldfish was listless, his bright orange color looking somehow duller. "Should we change his water? Maybe he needs fresher oxygen?" I suggested, already rolling up my sleeves. Jamie shook head. "We need to be careful. Sudden changes can stress him more. Let me check something." Jamie pulled out a phone and began researching goldfish illnesses, brow furrowed in concentration. Word spread quickly among our team. By the next morning, everyone was stopping by the tank with worried expressions. Mia brought in a small air pump she'd purchased on our way to work. Raj researched goldfish medications and had them delivered by lunchtime. Despite our efforts, Pixel's condition worsened over the weekend. On Monday morning, I found Jamie already at the office, looking exhausted. "Did you stay here all weekend?" I asked, alarmed. "No, but I came in several times to check on him and adjust the medication," Jamie admitted. "It doesn't look good, Alex. I think we might lose him." The team gathered for an emergency meeting that morning. Everyone looked solemn as Jamie explained Pixel's condition, likely a bacterial infection that was proving resistant to treatment. "So what do we do?" Dave asked, his usual sarcasm absent. "Is there some kind of fish hospital we can take him to?" "I've consulted with an aquarium specialist online," Jamie said. "We're doing everything we can, but—" Jamie's voice broke slightly. "We should prepare ourselves for the possibility that Pixel might not make it." The mood in the office that day was somber. I watched as team members took turns sitting by the tank, talking softly to Pixel as if he could understand their encouragement. It struck me how deeply this small creature had embedded himself in our collective heart in just a few months. That evening, after everyone else had gone home, I found Jamie still at the desk, head in hands. "Hey," I said softly, placing a gentle hand on Jamie's shoulder. "You've done everything possible." "It's not enough," Jamie replied, looking up with reddened eyes. "I keep thinking about those fish from my childhood. I promised myself I wouldn't let it happen again, but here we are." I pulled up a chair. "This isn't the same situation, Jamie. Pixel has received incredible care. Sometimes living things get sick despite our best efforts." "I know that logically," Jamie sighed, "but it still feels like failure." "Can I tell you what I see?" I asked. "I see someone who has poured heart and soul into caring for a small creature that most people wouldn't think twice about. Someone who has taught our entire team about responsibility and connection. Whatever happens with Pixel, you've shown us all what it means to truly care for something." Jamie looked at me for a long moment, then reached out and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Alex. That means a lot coming from you." We sat together by the tank late into the night, taking turns adjusting the medication and monitoring Pixel's breathing. Around midnight, I noticed Jamie had fallen asleep, head resting on folded arms at the desk. I gently draped my jacket over Jamie's shoulders, then returned to my vigil by the tank. "Come on, little guy," I whispered to Pixel. "You've got to pull through. Not just for the team, but for Jamie. You have no idea how much you matter." To my surprise, Pixel stirred slightly, his fins moving with a bit more energy than before. I blinked, wondering if I was imagining it, but no, he was definitely swimming with more purpose, moving away from the surface where he'd been floating listlessly. "Jamie," I called softly, excitement building. "Jamie, wake up. Look at Pixel." Jamie jolted awake, momentarily disoriented, then rushed to the tank. "Is he?" "He's swimming. Really swimming, not just floating." We watched in amazed silence as Pixel completed a full circuit of his tank, even pausing to investigate his castle, something he hadn't done in days. "The medication must be working," Jamie breathed, a smile breaking through the exhaustion. "This is a good sign, Alex. A really good sign." Without thinking, I pulled Jamie into a tight hug, relief washing over me. Jamie stiffened momentarily in surprise, then relaxed into the embrace, arms wrapping around my waist. We stayed like that longer than a typical colleague hug, drawing comfort from each other's warmth. When we finally pulled apart, something had changed in the air between us. Jamie looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, then quickly turned back to the tank. "We should, note the time and his activity level," Jamie said, reaching for the notebook we'd been using to track Pixel's condition. "For the record." "Right," I agreed, trying to ignore the lingering warmth where Jamie's body had pressed against mine. "For the record." Over the next few days, Pixel made a remarkable recovery. By Thursday, he was back to his normal self, swimming energetically and responding to our presence at the glass. The team celebrated with cupcakes decorated with blue and orange frosting to resemble water and goldfish. To Pixel, I toasted, raising my cupcake. And to Jamie, our resident fish whisperer, without whom we would definitely be planning a toilet funeral right now. Everyone laughed and applauded as Jamie blushed and took a playful bow. "And Alex," Jamie added, meeting my eyes across the room, "who reminded me that care is about showing up, even when the outcome is uncertain." Something warm unfurled in my chest at Jamie's words. Later that day, as we were packing up to leave, Jamie approached my desk. "I was thinking," Jamie began, fidgeting slightly with a pen, "maybe we should get Pixel a friend. Goldfish are social creatures, and now that he's healthy again, he might enjoy some company." I smiled. "That sounds like a great idea. Another team field trip to Aquatic Wonders?" "Actually," Jamie said, looking suddenly nervous, "I was wondering if maybe just you and I could go. Maybe Saturday? And perhaps get dinner after? There's this great little place near the pet store that serves amazing vegetarian tacos." My heart skipped a beat as I realized what Jamie was really asking. "Are you suggesting we have our first date at a pet store, buying a companion for our office goldfish?" Jamie laughed, the nervousness dissolving. "When you put it that way, it does sound a bit unconventional. But then again, so is this whole situation, isn't it? Two people bonding over late-night tank cleanings and fish medication? I wouldn't have it any other way," I said sincerely. "Saturday sounds perfect." That Saturday, we spent an hour at Aquatic Wonders, carefully selecting a companion for Pixel, a calico goldfish we named Binary, continuing our tech-themed naming convention. Tyler, the same employee who had helped us before, seemed delighted by our return and the story of Pixel's recovery. "You two make a good team," he observed as he bagged up Binary for transport. "Not many goldfish get such dedicated care." Dinner afterward wasn't what I expected. It was better. Away from the office, Jamie was even more animated, gesturing expressively while describing a documentary about deep-sea creatures, laughing openly at my terrible jokes, asking thoughtful questions about my family and aspirations. The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by moments when our eyes would meet and linger, creating small pockets of charged silence. "Can I ask you something?" Jamie said as we shared a dessert. "When did you know you were interested in me? As more than just a colleague, I mean." I considered the question. "I think it started during those Thursday evening tank cleanings. Seeing how much you cared about Pixel, how thoughtful you were about everything. It made me wonder what it would be like to be cared for that way." I paused, feeling suddenly vulnerable. "What about you?" Jamie smiled softly. "Remember that first morning when we were setting up the tank, and you brought me my favorite latte without me having to ask? That's when I started paying attention. But I think I knew for sure during Pixel's health crisis. You stayed with me all night, Alex. No one's ever done something like that for me before." On Monday morning, we arrived at the office together, carrying Binary in a transport bag. The team gathered around as we introduced the new fish to Pixel's tank, watching with delight as the two goldfish seemed to immediately recognize each other as companions, swimming side by side around their shared home. "They like each other," Mia observed. "Look how they're swimming in sync." "Two hearts are better than one," Raj said, then glanced between Jamie and me with a knowing smile. For fish and for people. Word spread quickly about our new relationship status. To my relief, The team was supportive and even seemed pleased by the development. Dave claimed he'd been running a secret office pool on when we'd finally get our act together, though no one could confirm if this was true or just typical Dave humor. As the weeks passed, our dual care for the office goldfish became a metaphor for our growing relationship. Like Pixel and Binary swimming side by side in their tank, Jamie and I found our rhythms together, supporting each other through work challenges, discovering shared interests outside the office, learning each other's quirks and needs. One evening, about 6 months after Pixel first joined our office, Jamie and I were the last ones remaining after a team celebration for landing a major new client. We stood by the fish tank, watching Pixel and Binary swim peaceful laps around their castle. "Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out?" Jamie asked, leaning against my shoulder. "If we hadn't decided to get an office pet that day?" I wrapped an arm around Jamie's waist, considering the question. "I'd like to think we would have found our way to each other eventually. But I'm grateful we didn't have to wait any longer than we did." Jamie turned to face me fully. "You know what I've learned from all this? Sometimes the smallest additions to your life, like a goldfish, can lead to the biggest changes. And sometimes taking care of something together reveals exactly what you need in your own life." "And what was that for you?" I asked softly. "Someone who shows up," Jamie replied, "a shining in the dim light of the office. Someone who stays when things get difficult. Someone who sees the value in caring deeply, even for a small orange fish that most people wouldn't think twice about." I leaned forward, resting my forehead against Jamie's. I think we both needed that reminder. That care isn't just about good intentions, it's about consistent action. About showing up day after day. Like cleaning a fish tank every Thursday night? Jamie teased. "Exactly like that," I laughed. Though I have to admit, I'm glad our date nights have expanded beyond the pet store and fish tank maintenance. Jamie's expression grew more serious. "I love you, Alex. And I'm not just saying that because you helped save our office goldfish." "I love you too," I replied, the words feeling both new and completely natural. "And I'm looking forward to many more years of caring for things together, goldfish, projects, each other." As we left the office that night, hand in hand, I glanced back at the tank where Pixel and Binary were settling in for the night, their bright colors visible even in the dimmed light. What had started as a simple attempt to boost team morale had become so much more, a lesson in responsibility, in vulnerability, in the power of showing up consistently for something you care about. Sometimes, it turns out, it takes two hearts to properly care for a goldfish. And in the process of that care, those two hearts might just find they were meant for each other all along. Total_char_count, 18,634.